today. My name is Aaron. I'm coming at you live from Singapore.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to
Chips for everybody.
Chips for everybody, yes. That would be an example.
We have Oleg and Mark. How's it going? Welcome to the stream and thanks for joining us.
I'm in San Francisco Bay Area, a little less snow than you guys see up.
How's it going, Tommy?
Hey guys, how are you?
Speaker? Daniel, how's it going?
Hi, good, thanks.
Is Azure function is just an entry point to
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you all. Thanks for joining us, whatever you're joining us from LinkedIn, YouTube, or Twitter. Thanks for joining us today for yet another public workshop and public event that we are running. Today's event is particularly interesting and exciting for me because we will be talking about an event mesh and hybrid event mesh, and we will be having a hands-on component as well. So if you have your laptop with you or your computer, you want to work along and follow along with us, please feel free to do so. A couple of housekeeping things before we get started for today. Whatever you're joining us, please let me know in the chat where you're joining us from, what city, country, state you're joining us from. You could comment on YouTube or LinkedIn, and we will see the comments as they come in. If you're watching us from the Solace community as well, thanks for joining us. You could you could post any comments as well, and we will be answering them throughout the workshop. So I definitely recommend you all to be a little bit interactive and let me know what's going on. So we have a couple people joining from the Netherlands, from New York. This is great. So welcome for joining us. Today, I will be joined by my colleague, Jamieson, who will be introduced shortly. Brenda, hello from Ottawa. Thanks for joining us. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce my colleague, Jamieson, and we will get started. Jamieson.
Hello. Hey, Tamimi. Hello, everyone in the chat. Good to see so many people in here. We have folks joining from all over, so happy to be here and excited to talk to you guys and work through today setting up Solace Event Mesh.
That's going to be exciting. Jamieson, where are you joining us from? Where are you located?
Yeah, I'm based out of Chicago in the States here. Terrible weather in Chicago, but happy to be here on the call and at least a little bit of sun to light up my face here on the call today.
Nice. Yeah, I'm joining from Vancouver, Canada, West Coast. It's very rainy today. I'm looking outside on the rain, but hey, it's the weather and the season here in the West Coast in Vancouver. So we have people joining from India, more people for joining from Ottawa. Thanks again for joining. So for whoever is joining right now, just a quick reminder: if you have any questions, feel free to ask on the channel, and we will be here to answer questions. So let's get straight into it, Jamieson. and start talking about what we're going to be discussing for today. So before we get started, today we're going to be talking about an event mesh, and we're going to mention the word event mesh a couple times throughout the call. So can you just give me a quick overview from your perspective what an event mesh is and the things that are involved in an event mesh?
Yeah, certainly. So I think that this concept is easier to visualize. So here we have a graphic that shows what you can expect with an event mesh, but essentially what we're doing here is creating a uniform connectivity layer between all of your different computing environments. So in this particular graphic, we've definitely got AWS going on here, as well as some other cloud providers. We've got private cloud in the mix, and then we've got on-premise computing down here in the bottom half of the diagram. And one of the biggest challenges that we face today is some of these services have features or components that are better for doing different parts of our business, but it's very challenging to get these different locations to talk to each other efficiently in a cost-effective manner, but also in a way that's able to be maintainable. So the concept of an event mesh allows us to have all of these advantages by building a layer of messaging between all of these services. So how are all of these different platforms? The way that we can do this is by deploying a Solace PubSub Plus Event Broker in each of these clouds as well as on-premise, and then meshing all of these brokers together. And then that way, when there is, say, an application on-premise publishing JMS messages, it communicates with its local broker on-premise. And then any of the analytics services running in AWS that are interested in those events subscribe to the topics for those particular events on their local broker in AWS that is a part of that event mesh. And now those events are automatically routed from the on-premise broker or that location where they're produced up to the AWS service that is interested in those events. And those particular events aren't routed anywhere else. So they're just intelligently routed, not replicated. Right.
Okay, no, this is great. Thanks for like a quick intro about this. And in the spirit of keeping this session interactive and hands-on, so for people who are willing to follow along with us, I will go ahead and kickstart this with a couple of things. But before that, we have some people joining us from Orlando. Hey, Mark, thanks for joining us from Orlando. More people joining from Ottawa, Canada on LinkedIn. So this is great. So we have a couple of people joining us from different locations. So let's go ahead and what I'm going to do right now is walk you through how we can set up a Solace Cloud account and deploy a Solace Cloud broker on a cloud region of your choice, and walk through then the different ways where we can create an event mesh and have an interconnected network of brokers. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead to solace.dev, and you can see here a get started with cloud. When you do so, you are presented with this sign up page. So if you don't have an account, feel free to go ahead and register, put your email, name, company, and you could let us know where you are joining us from, so you can here like attend a workshop. So we could like walk through that. I created already an account, so I'm gonna go ahead and log. So when you log into the Solace Cloud console, you'll see here on one of the icons called Cluster Manager. And this is where you can instantiate a service. Right now with this trial account, because I do have a trial account, I can create only one service. So I'm going to go ahead and create a developer service. I'm going to call it a mesh demo. Developer, choose cloud. I'm going to go ahead with AWS cloud region, and here I could choose which region I want. So I'm going to go ahead and use a US West, select the US West region, and then I can deploy my broker. So behind the scenes right now, the message broker is being instantiated, and I can see it in progress happening here. So if you're also following along, feel free to do this, and we will get back to this broker. Jamieson, what are the different ways where we can create an event mesh? How is it possible to create an event mesh?
Yeah, so there are a number of different ways. I think today we want to focus on the ones that are most accessible. And so the number one most accessible way to create an event mesh is going to be with the Mesh Manager tool inside of Solace Cloud. So what Tamimi is showing here is the tab below Cluster Manager. So once he created that broker in Cluster Manager, he could switch over to the Mesh Manager. And inside of that view, create a new event mesh. So what this allows him to do is select brokers from the list of existing services and mesh them together. And this obfuscates or automates a lot of the manual process that goes into creating these event meshes and makes them much more accessible and manageable. In this screen here, you can see you can also do things like monitor the health of that event mesh, see where the brokers are actually deployed and how they're connected. So this gives us an idea of what's going on with an event mesh. And here we can see that in order to have an event mesh, we have to have, in this case, we have 2, 4, 5 brokers, and each of those brokers is connected to the other brokers directly inside of that event mesh, creating that uniform connectivity. So messages can be routed from one broker to another without having to hop around and things like that.
Okay, so let's go ahead and do the first part of doing this connection with the Mesh Manager. So if we want to do it, I'll have to have a multiple brokers. So I do have another account that have multiple brokers. So what I did over here is I have set up a Solace Cloud broker on different AWS regions. I have a Solace Cloud broker in Canada, in Tokyo, and in Frankfurt to represent North America, APAC region, and Europe, respectively. Before we get started with building a mesh manager, a couple of reminders as well to the audience. If you have any questions, ask it in the chat. For whoever is joining us right now, let us know in the chat where you're joining us from, what country, city, and state you're joining us from. We'd be happy to hear where people are joining us from. Another question to the audience as we keep going, let me know if you've used Solace Cloud before, or if you have any questions about an event mesh in general, we could get to it. Jamieson, I interrupted you. Did you have something to say?
Yeah, I figured while we were talking about asking questions and interacting, I would interject here and say that we're going to talk about using this mesh manager. As Tamimi mentioned, that requires you to have multiple services in a cloud account. So that's obviously not accessible with the trial account. But what we will show later is the ability to use the web UI to build an event mesh as well between cloud brokers and software brokers. And that is something you can follow along with later as well. So we're going to try and run the gamut here of setting up meshes so that we can see how this is possible, from the easier end of the spectrum to the more flexible end of the spectrum, what it looks like.
Perfect. Jamieson, before we kind of start building the event mesh, I think this would be a good idea to introduce our use case. And what is the thing that we would like to do? Let's say, for example, in a real use case, so that we can have something to reflect on. So let's go ahead and introduce what is the use case that we want to do with this.
Yeah, I think. Do you have something to diagram with here? We can go ahead and talk about what we want to see in a use case. I've been working with retail a lot lately, some retail accounts. So I figured we could talk about maybe a fraud detection use case for retail orders here. So I see you have already drawn up some regions here that we've deployed services in AWS. Do you want to talk to me about what these 3 circles are, and then I'll talk about what we can run off of these brokers to have a real life use case?
What we see here with the 3 circles right now, these is kind of the different cloud regions that we have. So what we see here directly is we have the 3 different cloud regions. And in fact, let me actually put this here. We have the three regions here, and right now nothing is connected to these 3 regions. They're all just idle, and the idea is we would have microservices connected to these regions. So you mentioned something about retail. How would that work with this?
Yeah, so I figured since we've got 3 locations that we want to mesh together, we'll come up with a use case here that spans these 3 continents that we've described. So I figured probably we could have an application inside of the North America that is creating applications. So this would simulate somebody logging into the storefront and maybe making a new purchase. And that could be, nice. I think what we have ready to go is a Java application for creating orders. Those would be published into the North America broker here inside of Solace, running on AWS.
So let's say that, for example, we would have multiple stores in North America that are publishing orders, perhaps to our North America broker. Okay.
Yeah. So those events are going to be valuable here in North America, but also inside of Europe, we have a team that does real-time analytics on these orders for understanding advertising. You know, what are people buying? How can we better direct ads? How can we get people better deals on the things that they're buying? So in order to leverage the machine learning and the analytics that we're doing there in the EU, we have to get these order events from the United States over to those services running in the EU. You know, it's possible we could just subscribe to those topics from the broker in the US, but we run into a lot of concerns there about reliability, latency, you know, what happens if one of these brokers goes down? Also, as an app team running in Europe, how do I know necessarily where to connect to? There requires a lot of communication between me and the US team managing this Solace broker. So that can get complicated. So by using the event mesh, we can actually solve this in a better way. We can link this AWS region in the US and this AWS region in Europe. We can connect the 2 Solace brokers in a intelligent routing setup here. So if our consumer, our machine learning app in the EU subscribes to some of these order topics, events from the US broker will automatically get routed over there into the EU broker and be locally accessible to those machine learning apps.
Nice. And from a fraud detection, I know you mentioned something about fraud detection. Where would that kind of fall in this use case?
Yeah, so our fraud detection team is actually running out of APAC. So I think we have a broker over in Japan, and they need those events to be local to Japan for some legal reasons, to run more efficient analytics on there, and to provide alerting about fraud. So we're also going to connect that APAC broker into the event mesh. And then maybe we want to inform the analytics team of this fraud as well. So we're going to then mesh that APAC broker with the EU broker. So now what we have is a complete event mesh between these 3 brokers. Mainly what we're talking about here is order details, but these brokers or these applications in Japan can publish back to their Solace broker on new topics, and additional applications in Europe can subscribe to those topics, and events will be intelligently routed. If there's no interested parties for those events in the US, there's no unnecessary duplication or lift of these events from Japan to the US. So there are a number of advantages of building this event mesh that we will have over, you know, publishing via REST, you know, pushing these things out, the request reply sort of approach, or even just other duplication methods or routing methods.
Nice. So I think this is a kind of like a good starting point. But like, all right, here's kind of the demo overall, what we're going to do. In the hands-on portion, we're going to show you how we can build this with the UI mesh builder. But we will also, after doing this, so you can build your own mesh with a local broker that you are running. We will have a use case shortly after this, where we'll have a local broker on your machine, a software Docker broker that is connected to your cloud-hosted broker that you just instantiated. Before we move on, I'll welcome more people as well. We have more people from joining us. Vinod from Singapore, welcome. Again, anybody on the call, let us know where you're joining us from. If you have any questions without event mesh up front, feel free to put it in the chat. And if you're already using an event mesh, I'd be interested to kind of hear what the use case that you have is. So let's set up the publisher. We have a sample publisher that kind of publishes retail store kind of purchases. Jamieson, where can I get this information to publish and kind of like run it locally?
Yeah, so we went ahead and created some sample applications here. I'm going to send out a link to the Solace community. Inside of the community, once you log in, so you may have to create an account in order to log in, you can get to the workshop section of the community. And inside of the workshop section of the community, I have made a post here containing the majority of the information that we are going to or the applications that we're going to use in this particular workshop. And then TryMe also has a post in there with some of the consuming apps that we use for this workshop and other workshops as well. So one of these is a Git repo. TryMe's post contains a zip with MQTT Node.js applications. And then there's also a Docker Compose file and the necessary components to spin up a secured Solace broker locally. But we'll touch on those Docker components a little bit later.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead for the GitHub repo, the one that you have here on your post, Jamieson, to kind of spin up a retail application, a microservice. So pretty much we're going to simulate the bunch of retail stores that are publishing information to our North America broker. So I went ahead, I'm going to go ahead and clone this repo. So let's actually come here and I'm going to create a new directory, call it mesh demo. In that, I will clone the repo or the application that you have in here. And
so
then,
TryMe, when you spin up this publisher, will I be able to see the events in Europe or Japan yet, or not?
That's a good question. Right now, since we don't have any, we did not create any links, I would say that we will not be able to see anything in Europe and Japan for now.
Okay, and then after this, we'll build the links so that we can start to see those messages route around.
Yeah, I think that would be a good idea. And I think what we could do is we could spin up this microservices into Europe and Japan and kind of see that we still don't have anything. So cool. Let's go ahead and see what the application actually looks like. So I'm gonna go ahead and open this. So Jamieson, is this so the one that you just shared with me is just in the GitHub repo is just a Spring application, correct?
Yeah, it's a Spring Cloud Streams application. There's currently just one in there under the order creations directory. Yep. And we can go ahead and Spring Boot run this. And what we want to see is the resources folder.
Resources folder, right?
Yeah. Inside of there, there's an application.yaml. Inside of here, we'll configure our publishing information. So this particular broker is, we'll actually get this information from the Solace Cloud Console. We need to get the host name, the message VPN, and the client and username and client password. I think we know those off the top of our head, so we can supply them here, but those are easily accessible in the Connect tab for individual services in Solace Cloud as well.
So when we go to the Solace service, so for example, I have my Solace service that I just spun up earlier. I can go to the mesh demo under the Connect tab. There are information. So this is the information where I got, this is the host. There is the message VPN, username and password. This is the information that you would need to populate the application. So what we do have is I have my AWS Canada application, and the host name is AWS CA Retail Messaging Solace Cloud. We do have a username and a password that is public. All right, so shall we go ahead and run this, Jamieson, and see what we have?
Yeah, we can go ahead and kick this off. As you are running the Maven command here, I'll explain what we're doing. So this application just generates some sample orders. It populates the payload of those orders with some information about what's being ordered, how many of those items are being ordered, and which store they're being ordered from. We take some of this information and we put it into the publishing topic. So you can see here, we're starting to publish on these retail point of service topics, and then the location that they're coming from. So these are, Blacksburg, Franklin, and then the final level of this topic is the size of the store. So small, medium, and large, boiled down into integer values.
Okay, so I'm gonna have this publisher running on the side. So I'm gonna actually rename this window, and I'm gonna call this my publisher, so we can understand. So we do have the publisher over here. Cool. So I have my Java application that is publishing to my North America broker. So to confirm this, actually, what I'm going to do is I will go to my North America broker over here, and under the TryMe tab, I can connect to the broker just to see what's going on in here. And I'm going to subscribe to retail and use a wildcard. This means that I want to subscribe to any topic that matches retail and all the other levels under it. So I can see here that in my North America broker, I am getting information with this payload, a body of the information that is coming in. Nice. Okay. Excellent. So this is publishing in here. That's excellent.
Do we, I think at this point, want to spin up another consumer, the applications in EU and in Japan, so we can get this fraud detection online and get some ad machine learning online?
Nice. All right. So let's spin up two separate microservices. And what I would like to do here is demonstrate another powerful feature of the Solace PubSub Plus broker. So one of the features of the Solace PubSub Plus broker is protocol interoperability. And the nice thing about this is you can have different microservices that uses the native Solace APIs with different languages. So right now we are using the Java API to publish messages to the Solace broker. We can have different native APIs for Solace that can connect to the Solace broker and subscribe to the topic. But we can also use open source protocols like MQTT. So it depends on what language you want to use. You could go ahead and build that. In the Solace community site, so I have created under a workshops. So I'm going to come here, back to workshops. And again, if you want to access this information, feel free to go to solace.community. You have to be logged in and go under the workshops category. You will see these two. So I've put a sample Node.js MQTT application over here, which is a super simple Node.js application. I will go ahead and download it and see what we could do with this. So I'm going to open another terminal window. So let me actually put this on the side, make this a bit bigger, navigate to my mesh demo, and move the one that I just downloaded with MQTT sample here. And then actually what I want to do is I want to create a fraud detection application where I move my MQTT node application in here and unzip it. All right, so let's see what we have in here. Before moving on, I'm looking at to see if there's we have a couple questions. So one question is about the experience with the Python for microservices compared for Java in the sense of speed, stability, ease of programming, etc. So Hilko, thanks for asking this question. To my previous note, so I mentioned that the Solace broker supports multiple APIs, and if you go into the Solace docs and look at the different APIs that are supported, you can see a bunch of features for all the APIs, the native APIs that we have, and the supported features per API. To kind of like put more details on the performance of the different APIs, I definitely would recommend going on the Solace community, asking any detailed questions that you want, and we could answer that for you.
As a general
right.
note, though, for these particular APIs, Python, Node, we very much tried to tailor the experience for developers who are used to working in that environment. Both the documentation and the tooling inside of the actual SDK itself. So hopefully you'll find that to be accessible if you come from a Python background or even like a Golang background.
All right, so let's see what we have here for our fraud detection. So fraud detection, this is just like a very simple MQTT application. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom in case people are not able to see. In this application, what we have is, again, like we're using a public the package, the MQTT, and we're just connecting to it to see what we have. So in the host, let's go ahead and put the host for our Europe application. Or fraud detection is actually in APAC. Yeah. Username, password, they're public that we have over here, and that's about it. I'm going to define the topic that I want to subscribe to. So I would subscribe to all of the retail applications, and I will run this app and see what we have. So fraud detection. Let's do this. Let's do npm install.
And while you're kicking that off, Tamimi, there was another question in the chat here from Jack. Is Solace providing a broker functionality or connecting to other brokers like Kafka? So Solace is its own broker. We have our own underlying broker technology. We can communicate with other technologies like Kafka, but our broker itself supports many other open protocols. So like MQTT, AMQP, we actually can speak those wireline protocols. Then internally, we handle those events on the Solace broker and publish them out in whatever format the subscriber is looking for those messages in. So we're a polyglot broker. We can speak different protocols.
Right. So I hope, Jack, this answers the question. If you have any follow-up questions, feel free to ask again. And for more people who are joining us right now, welcome again from wherever you're joining us. So Simab from Pakistan, thanks for joining us into this call. So Jamieson, we have our fraud detection application. And let me actually rename this window. Okay, so we have, that is the wrong, okay, perfect. So we do have the window title. This is our fraud detection. All right, so we've got the fraud detection application here. To demonstrate actually what we could do to demonstrate the multi-protocol communication aspect of this. So we have our fraud detection written in Node.js, the advertising microservice, we could write it in, let's say, Go. I'm just going to choose a programming language over here. So if anybody wants to go ahead and check out the Solace Go API samples, you'll see that we have a GitHub repo for the Solace Go APIs. And let's say that we want a direct subscriber. And it will show you here what are the different ways you can connect to the Solace broker and using different patterns. So I'm just going to simply go ahead and copy one of the samples for the direct message for the direct subscriber for Go. So what I will do is I will I'll open another terminal window in here and go to my mesh demo, create a new directory, call it and add analytics. In the add analytics, what I want to do is I want to copy the samples that I already have it on my machine. So I have Go samples, pattern, direct subscriber, which is simply the same as the one that you just that I showed you here. I'm going to set up my environment with Go. So I'm just going to follow the instructions in the README. So I will set up the module with Go and install the Solace API. So I'm just going to go ahead and do go get install or go get the Solace the Solace API. So let me go ahead and open this and see how this looks like. So I've got the ad analytics. I have my direct subscriber in here. So I'm just going to go ahead and configure the information that I need. So this, I will put my the URL, the host for my broker. So which broker is this, Jamieson, that we are doing?
This one should be the EU broker.
Okay, so this will be for the EU broker right now. So this EU broker will be, I'm going to go ahead in here, go to my EU broker and get the information. So I'm just going to put this here on the side to go get the information for my EU broker. So, okay, I've got this. Perfect. I'm going to go ahead and just paste the host name in here. The message VPN is AWS EU. We've got username, password is public. And I will go ahead and scroll down to where we subscribe to the topic. So see here, I define the topics that I want to subscribe to. And in the topic, let me just delete this and say that I want to subscribe to retail greater than. And again, if you want more information about how we use the Solace wildcards in the topics, I'm going to go ahead and do a Solace wildcards. And you'll see in the documentation, there's two different wildcards that we use in the topic filtering. There's the asterisk wildcard and the greater than. And we will give you more information about these wildcards.
Tamimi, so for this Go app, why don't we use the star wildcard? And instead of subscribing to all retail, do retail/POS /star/1 and only get those middle-sized stores.
Okay, so what you're saying is for our ad microservice, we only want to run advertisement for medium-sized retail stores.
Yeah.
Is that correct,
yeah.
James? Okay, so to kind of give a quick refresher on the structure of the topic. So our publisher right now is publishing applications on this topic. So the last level on the topic reflects the size of the retail store. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. So what is the topic that I want to do here, Jamieson?
Yeah, so retail is the high level, followed by a //POS, so point of sale. It's the next level.
POS.
/ and then we're going to use this single level wildcard.
Okay, single level wildcard.
Which is a star, yeah, to get all of the locations of these stores. And then we're going to add another /. So the final level we want, and we want only topics that are for the middle-sized stores. So we're going to use the 1. Yep.
Okay, perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and run this application as well and see what we have. So this is our publisher application. I'm going to put this here on the side for our publisher application. We've got our fraud detection application over here. And then I want to go run the direct subscriber. So we'll see what we have with this. So there you go. We are connected to the broker. We're subscribed to this topic, and we are waiting for information to come. So technically what we did right now is the following. What did we do right now, Jamieson? So if you kind of give us a quick overview on what we have set up.
Yeah, so we laid the application groundwork here for this architecture that we're building. We've placed the retail stores, the publishers, publishing to the AWS Canada broker. We have created the fraud detection service running in connecting to the APAC broker. And we've created the analytics service connecting to the EU broker. I'll dovetail this into Hilco's most recent question and say that all of these applications are running on Tamimi's local machine, but typically these applications can run wherever you want. Solace does not provide a platform for running your microservices on. But in this case, AWS is the perfect location to run these services on. You can run them in EC2 instances. You can run Lambdas. You can essentially however you would deploy your microservices and then connect them up to the local Solace broker in that particular cloud or region, or even on-prem servers. And then now that we have all these applications running, we're still publishing events to that North America broker, but we aren't seeing any events coming across on those topics in either the EU or in APAC. So in order to see that happen, we're going to have to mesh these brokers together. Since they're all in cloud, to me, we can do that really easily by going back to the cloud console, going to the mesh manager, and creating a new mesh. So in the top right, there's the create the mesh button. Inside of here, you can provide a name for this particular mesh. We'll call it maybe retail mesh or fraud detection mesh, something like that. And inside of this window, we have the ability to add services to this mesh. So we can click add service. We can select from the drop-down menu our Canada service, AWS-CA. We can add this service. This will show up on the map and it says, hey, we can't make a mesh with only one service. So let's go ahead and add another service to this mesh. We can click add service.
Oops. Add service. Okay.
Yep. We can select from that list either the EU or the APAC broker, the dropdown. And if we say, so here we're prompted to say, okay, how do we want to connect to this service? Since these are running publicly accessible in AWS, we will just leave this default public endpoint selection. And it's showing it's creating a link between the APAC broker and the Canada broker. So we'll click add service. And we'll see now we have a broker in Canada. If you scroll the map way over, you'll see we have a broker in APAC. We could click done at this point and we create a mesh with just these two brokers, at which point we would see events now appearing. Well, give it a couple of seconds here to actually do the underlying work, and we'll begin to see events on our fraud detection service.
Okay.
If you keep an eye on the Chrome window as well, here we go. So that mesh has been created. There's two brokers in the mesh, and we're seeing those events now flowing from the Canada broker over to the APAC broker and then down to the fraud detection service.
Nice. So technically here, Jamieson, is what happened is we created the mesh between the North America broker and the APAC, and now we're starting getting it from results in our APAC broker. All right?
Yep, exactly. And this is only messages that we're interested in being duplicated across that link. So we're not replicating every message. But what we can do here, go ahead.
A quick overview is that in our APAC broker, so I'm going to go ahead to my fraud detection application. It's a Node.js application. I said that I am interested in all events that kind of match anything, all the other topics. Mind you here, because we're using an MQTT, open source, open standard MQTT, we'll be using the MQTT nomenclature for how to do wildcards. But to continue back to your point, Jamieson.
Yeah. So now if we go back into this retail mesh, we can add the EU broker by clicking add service, selecting the EU broker from the dropdown. See, we're creating two links here because we need a link between each of the services. So we're now connecting from EU to both APAC and Canada brokers. We can say add service and done, and we will create that new set of links to complete this event mesh. Now, this is going to be more valuable to my previous point where we're in this particular EU service, we're only subscribing to some of the topics. So only events that are published to these medium store topics, the /1 topics, will get replicated across to this EU broker. So as you can see, the message rate here is much, much slower in our Go application than it is in our fraud detection application.
Nice. So you're saying here that we're only getting messages that match our topic subscription. And maybe to make this even look nicer, what I'm going to do is every time we receive a message, I'm going to say receive message on topic. And this is the message that we want to get is the message dot get destination name. I don't want to print the body yet, just so that it looks pretty good. All right, so we've got that. That's not being used. So I will go ahead, disconnect this, run it again, and see my, and here I'm gonna call this our, so I'm gonna put this the window in the title. So this is our ad analytics.
So not only is this application only getting those events are the only things being routed from Canada to Europe. So any of the topics that end in a 0 or a 2 are not even being routed over to that broker. So we're managing our AWS costs as well there by not egressing data that we don't need to.
So what is the benefits of having this? Like, what is the advantage of just creating this DMR mesh? And I know you mentioned the DMR a couple of times, but what is the DMR? What is the benefits of having this, creating an event mesh in the way that we have it over here, Jameson?
Yeah, so I mean, the biggest benefit is the uniform connectivity. So this makes it easier to make business decisions. It provides a uniform capability to all of the applications, no matter where they're running inside of your enterprise. It allows to manage costs better and provide a better experience both for developers as well as partners and other folks who are interested in the events that you are producing. And it also provides just a more efficient way of interacting with your events. So we can take advantage of all of the security and visibility features that Solace has to offer, such as distributed trace inside of our event mesh here, so that we can better understand and leverage the business value of these events.
Right. You mentioned something interesting as well about the data rate and egress rate. So with this DMR capability, which is dynamic message routing, I'd like to call it kind of like an intelligent routing, where, as you mentioned, and I want to reiterate on this point, Jamieson, is that not all the messages are being replicated. So there's no replication of messages into the actual mesh. Only the events that are of interest will go to the link. So it will save cost, it will save on bandwidth. And let's say here that in our Europe region, we are running, like, for example, let's say tight budgets for our cloud providers. So we only want to attract traffic that is of interest. And here we are only running advertisements on stores that are medium-sized stores. So let's say that we're running a proof of concept on this analytics engine that we want. And we don't really want to run our algorithm or our kind of process for ads on all stores. We only want particular set of stores, so that our fraud detection is doing fraud detection on all stores, all information that are coming in, but our ad service is only taking the information that we want in here.
Yeah, so I think that this is a pretty reasonable, a simplified but reasonable use case for where you would see an event mesh coming into play and providing value. We've shown the easy way to create an event mesh. Now, if you're interested in trying this out for yourself, we can actually create an event mesh between Solace brokers that are running in the cloud and software brokers. So as Tamimi's adding onto the diagram here, we could start up a local broker on his computer and connect this into the event mesh as well. So in this particular case, it's simulating maybe an on-premise broker that you have running in a data center or maybe running in a store. And it would like to connect, or Tamimi's, exactly. Tamimi has a very critical machine learning processes running on it. And we'd like him to be able to be privy to this new information that's revealed elsewhere inside of our organization, maybe in Canada or the EU. The same way all of these other applications are able to access that information via the event mesh. So what we could do is also link this broker into the event mesh. So I think this is valuable because you can at home run the same setup. You can go ahead and spin up a broker on a trial account in the cloud, like Tamimi did at the beginning of this workshop. And then you can go ahead and if you have Docker installed and ready to go, you can pull down the Docker Compose file that I uploaded to the workshop section of the community and spin up your own Solace broker locally. Do you have that ready to go?
A good reminder for everyone right now, so who is following along. If you want to kind of get back into the hands-on portion of this, so this is a good time and place to follow along. If you want to spin up a local Docker, a local broker on your machine. So Jamieson, let's go ahead and do this.
Yeah, sounds good.
Right.
I think you have the Docker Compose file ready to go. Is that true? Have you pulled it down?
I actually do not have it. So let's go ahead and install it from here. So where can I find it?
Perfect. So inside of the community, you can select workshops, which we're already at, and then select my post here for the April 18th workshop. I have attached a zip file here at the very bottom. Inside of this zip file, we have a Compose YAML file, which will be used to spin up the broker service. There's also two additional files, which are a cert file and then a password file for that particular cert. All of these things will allow us to, with a single command, spin up a Solace broker that is secured with a TLS certificate right out of the box and has been set up to support 1,000 topics. So Solace software, there's a free edition of the software that you can use up to 1,000 connections. And you can run that right now. So that's essentially what we're doing here.
Okay, so what I did right now is I installed the Docker Compose file that Jamieson had on the community post, and I will unzip the folder and see what we have. So let's go ahead and see what is in here, Jamieson. Yeah. So I have my local broker in here, and there is a Docker Compose file. So what's in this Docker Compose file?
Yeah, so we've got the very standard Docker stuff here for Docker Compose. You know, what version is this? Which container we're pulling? We're pulling the PubSub, or we're going to name it PubSub Plus Standard Single Node, but we're going to base that on the Solace PubSub Plus Standard latest version. So the standard edition is what you can use for free, up to 1,000 connections for Solace. We're only giving this a gig of RAM. We're also allocating, you know, the cores and the storage limits there. At the very bottom, at the very bottom, we are exposing Solace communication ports. So here you can see all the different protocols that we support, what ports those will be running across. And we're enabling all of them just, you know, for fun. At the bottom, we configure some environment variables. Some things to note here, the login passwords will be admin and the username will be admin. We're setting the connection counts to 1,000 as opposed to the default of 100. This will allow us to participate in a DMR or an event mesh. And then we're also supplying a certificate file and a certificate password file. And this will start our broker with a TLS certificate. This is required for communicating with Solace Cloud brokers for the creation of an event mesh or a DMR link via the web UI. So if you go ahead and run Docker Compose up here, this will spin up our broker. If you wanted to run this and still be able to use your terminal afterwards, you could run Docker Compose up-D to run in detached mode. Once this is up and running, we can go to Chrome. We'll probably want to open a incognito mode in Chrome and go to localhost : once this is up, 8080 should redirect to 1943, 1443 maybe.
Let's see. So I'll make sure that my broker is up and running.
Yeah, it should be up and running. We got the warning there. Try, yeah. And here we're having to accept a warning that this is a self-signed certificate. It's not signed by DigiCert or GoDaddy or a trusted root certificate. That's fine because we're just doing this for testing or demo purposes. In production, of course, you'd want to have your certificates signed and keep them very safe. So not distribute them on the community page.
That's actually good advice, Jamieson. Thanks for pointing this out. A quick caveat and kind of a disclaimer. What we're doing is kind of showing you how to use some of these features. They might, if you want to do something like enterprise ready and production ready, there are more best practices that we can follow and chat about more in the community about security perspective.
Definitely.
Cool.
Yeah, and so here we'll use admin and admin to log into the broker. Oh, go ahead, Tamimi.
No, I was just saying, like, I have my local broker up and running.
Okay, and now we're inside of this broker. This will look a little bit different than what you see in cloud, but we'll select our default message VPN there, and we can go ahead and start creating the underlying components to participate in an event mesh. So we're going to select clustering here under the systems shade on the left side of the window.
Okay. And before we do that, that would be a good time to good place to kind of mention where people could follow. Like if anybody is not following along right now and want more information about this, what we're doing is we have something called codelabs.solace.dev. And in our codelabs.solace.dev, we have a bunch of tutorials that people could follow. One of the tutorials that we have is how to build a DMR mesh. And what we're doing right now is we have a local broker that is connected to a cloud broker. And Jamieson is going to walk me through how to set up my local broker to be connected to a cloud broker and form a mesh. So what you see right now here, we just logged into our Solace broker, went into our default message VPN, and then we're just going through the steps of creating a mesh. So Jamieson,
this one would be number 2. Yeah, if you're looking at the code lab here, that would be step number 2. And this is just an alternative way to set up a event mesh as opposed to the mesh manager that we showed before. So if we select clustering here, we can create a new cluster. We didn't have to do these steps in cloud because cloud services automatically create a cluster for you. So we can call this cluster whatever we want, local event mesh, or just essentially whatever Tamimi comes up with here. Okay, we're going to leave it enabled. We're going to leave basic authentication enabled and provide a password here and confirm that password. So I think we're going to just use public maybe, or it doesn't really matter as long as Tamimi remembers it.
Yeah, public. I'm using public.
Okay, let's turn off client certificate authentication. Alrighty, so this will prevent any issues with the self-signed cert, stuff like that. We're going to leave TLS enabled here and the rest of the settings as they are and say apply.
Okay.
So this creates a cluster on our local broker. You'll get some of these warnings. This is just saying that the amount of spool space that you have for this local broker is below the recommended amount for participating in DMR or an event mesh. We're going to say continue. Once again, this is something that's for testing or production. Definitely don't just go through and do a quick and dirty like this.
Disclaimer.
Yes, quick disclaimer. Okay, so Tamimi clicked apply there and accepted the warning. After a couple of seconds, our cluster came online here. So its status is up. Now what we can do is create a link between this cluster and our cloud cluster. Here we have create external link. We're going to select. Creating internal links is more for scaling brokers horizontally. But in this case, we want to connect out to a cloud broker. And so we're going to use external link. We can either provide the connection information for the broker that we want to connect to, or because we're using cloud, we can select the cloud tab here. We can supply a username and password. I think Tamimi has a token ready to go for this, maybe.
Yeah, so for this one, I could use a username password. And again, the username password is the same one that you folks used in creating. So when I created my account over here, my previous account of the mesh demo, I can use the same username password that I created, or I can go ahead and do a token management. So what I will do for this one is I will go for the token approach. So I can go to more information at the bottom here, token management. I'm going to create a token and kind of call it the mesh demo token. I want to give it read-write access for our mesh manager and for the services so that it can see what are the services. Yes.
Did we want to do this in this account or for time's sake participate in the existing event mesh?
I want to participate in the existing event mesh. So it is the existing event mesh.
Okay, cool.
This is the account for the existing event mesh.
Okay, sounds good. Just checking.
Yeah. Thanks for checking. Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and generate a token that has access to our mesh manager and the services. So I'm going to go ahead, create this token. I'll copy this token and go back to my the local PubSub Plus manager. So back to you, Jamieson.
Yeah, so we can provide this token and now click configure DMR bridge. This is going to allow us to select our local message VPN we want to bridge. Select default here. Anything with a pound in front of it is a internal Solace construct. So we're going to avoid pound cluster and select default. Okay. On the right side, we're going to select which remote VPN we want to connect to. I think in this case, we want CA.
Yep.
For the Canada broker. And then we will create the remote connection by clicking remote connection setup. Once again, we have to agree to this spool warning. There'll be another warning that says, hey, are you sure? And we're going to say continue. After this wheel spins for a little bit, we're going to see an option to decide which side we want to connect from, local or remote. In this case, because Tamimi's probably behind a home internet firewall, we're going to select local. So the connection will instantiate from his machine out to AWS. Below that, we provide the password that we created initially. So I think public for this local cluster.
Public, correct.
And we'll leave all of this as is and say create link and test connection.
Nice.
On the next screen, we'll see a couple of the steps that the broker is going through to start the connection, build the bridge, and confirm that the bridge is working. Should probably take less than a minute. What we could do at this point to confirm that messages are flowing to, or to actually get messages to flow to this local broker would be to spin up another consumer, either a fraud consumer or a ad consumer. So either MQTT in Node or Go, and subscribe to our local broker.
Yeah, so let's say I'm going to go to my ad analytics, or let's say the fraud detection. I will copy, duplicate this, and I want to call this my machine learning, I don't know, AI consumer. And then all I want to do is connect to localhost in this way, right? So the thing, localhost, and I can spin this up then locally. Or another thing that I can do is, well, we could do the TryMe. Shall we try the TryMe?
Sounds good. Yeah, you'll have to hit exit here, and then you can get to the TryMe tab.
So what do we see here with this? So we have our local broker connected to our the local event mesh that is connected to our cloud hosted broker, right?
Correct. Yeah. And this is a little bit, this is not a complete mesh. You'd have to connect this local broker to the other two brokers as well to have a complete event mesh. But for time's sake, this will get us messages from Canada broker to local broker, and also from local broker to Canada broker, if that's something that we wanted to do by publishing to this local broker and then subscribing to those same topics on the Canada broker. So Tamimi went to the TryMe tab here. And then what'd you do in the TryMe tab, Tamimi?
I connected to my local broker. So in the TryMe tab, it gives us two different options to connect to the broker, whether you want to publish or subscribe. So I went to the subscriber, I connected to the local broker and subscribed to this topic, which is retail greater than, and I can see that I am receiving messages in my local broker. So pretty much what we showed earlier in this diagram, we are getting the message, the events directly from that broker that match the subscription. Because I am putting retail greater than, it's getting everything. Technically, I could do as well similar subscription to what we had earlier, which is the retail, POS, all stores, but I only want to get the small size stores. So now I'm only subscribing to any event that has this small size store. So I'm only getting the events of choice. And again, this is also highlighting the benefits of DMR, dynamic message routing, where we are intelligently routing messages that only match the topic subscription of choice that we have.
Exactly. So what we've seen is two ways to create an event mesh inside of Solace. We've had a retail architecture to take advantage of this event mesh in order to have dynamic message routing between multiple Solace brokers, either in AWS or on-premise. And we have spun up some applications to both publish and consume those events from their local broker. Those events have been routed across the event mesh from where they're being produced to where they are needed to provide business value. And all of this has been done without the need to replicate every single message out to every single Solace broker, both providing efficiency and a more manageable environment to access your business events more easily and more uniformly across the entire enterprise.
Cool. That was a pretty neat demo, Jamieson. Thanks for walking me through the steps and configuration and showing us and telling us kind of the different ways to creating an event mesh. We showed it on the UI Mesh Manager Builder and the how to do it with a local broker. The information and the data that is that you need for this, from running the microservices, having the Docker Compose file, are all found in the Solace community. So you can see here, come here to the Solace community, and you can go under workshops again and find the information that that you want to run this again after this workshop. And another kind of call out is if you go to codelabs.solace.dev, which I will put the link directly in here. So codelabs.solace.dev, that you can do it. And Jamieson, thanks for sharing the link in the chat. You can go to the DMR mesh exploration, and the steps that Jamieson just walked us through are highlighted in here in details. So you can see this is the steps that we just did to create an event mesh from our local broker to a cloud hosted broker. So that is pretty much it. I think this is a good time to wrap it up, Jamieson, and open it up to any questions. I think we've had very like we had a good demo, end-to-end demo, to show like how we can do the event mesh and build it. I had a great time doing it with you, Jamieson, as well. So do you have any last comments or thoughts?
No, I think that this was a great experience for me. Thanks for having me on to talk about building an event mesh. Obviously, this is a pretty rudimentary example, but things can get a lot more valuable here as you add additional brokers, regions, hybrid multi-cloud scenario into the mix. So there's definitely a lot of ways that we can leverage this in large enterprises and as well as interesting scenarios. So feel free to reach out and ask any questions here, or reach out to Solace if you have additional questions about how you could leverage an event mesh inside of your organization.
Fantastic. Thanks, Jamieson, for this. We'll wait here a little bit to see if anybody else has any questions. People are dropping out, which is great. So thanks for everybody who joined us. Thanks for the questions. Thanks for making this interactive. We do have questions about how can we, set something like this in production, or about courses and certifications. So Hilco, yes, we do have certifications. So if you go to the Solace community and solace.dev, scroll down and see the certifications where you can join the Solace Academy and follow some of these certifications. The nice thing about, if you followed along right now and created an account on Solace community, you can use the same account to log into our Solace Academy and check out the resources there, a bunch of certifications, and all the information that you want. And again, the Solace community is open to anyone in the public. So you can go ahead, create a Solace community account, ask a bunch of questions, whether you want to ask questions about Solace in specific or event-driven architecture in general, and kind of have a discussion on the Solace community. Feel free to do so, because the community forum has a bunch of experts in the event-driven architecture domain, and there's a bunch of Solace employees as well on the community, where you can just share information back and forth and see where this goes. So that is, hopefully this answers your question, Ilko, as well. All right, so I've had some people who enjoyed this. Brenda, thanks. I hope you enjoyed it. Gil, glad you enjoyed the content. Sunil, Java coding video. Do you want more videos on Java coding, or are you asking about kind of just in general Java coding? You could definitely go to our YouTube channel. So on YouTube, go to Solace, check out the playlist that we have. We have a bunch of videos about using Java, the Java API with Solace, Spring Cloud Stream. We have a very informative live coding event with a couple people that we had on the channel as guest speakers before that talk about Spring Cloud Stream. So feel free to do that and check it out. Ask us any questions as well if you have. Nick, I'm glad you enjoyed the session. That was great. And thanks for sharing the link for the training sites. And that is something that you can do. So Jamieson, I think this would be a good time to wrap it up. Thanks again for joining us. I had a great time having you as a guest speaker on our channel. And if anybody has any follow-up questions, they can go ahead on our community, even on the same post that Jamieson put on the workshops. You can put your questions there. Jamieson will get back to you. And if you have any questions, we will be answering. So without further ado, thank you, Jamieson. Thanks, everybody who joined us. And we will catch you at our next event. Take care.
All right. Thanks, Samimi. See you all in the community. Bye.
No worries.